Pep Guardiola is struggling to turn things around at the Etihad. Therefore, from a certain perspective, perhaps accelerating the split is appropriate for both sides. Each week, Manchester City seems to reach their lowest point. The abyss is getting deeper, the bottom reappears, and it seems increasingly impossible to reverse this decline. The citizens are in free fall, even after having just signed new contracts amid an 11-game winning streak. The anterior cruciate ligament injury suffered by Rodri in September has caused a crisis with no sign of ending. The unexpected defeat on Sunday against Manchester United was all the confirmation the world needed about that. With every defeat and every point lost, you wonder if the Catalan coach regrets his decision to extend his contract. In reality, that might not even matter. There is no guarantee Guardiola will stay at the Etihad Stadium for long, and there's a compelling case that he should actually leave. Pep Guardiola is quite emotional and sometimes overly excitable. In the best of times, and in the worst of times, he is almost a maniac. He had to issue a public apology after implying that he had self-harmed. It was the stress of seeing City lose a 3-goal lead late in the match against Feyenoord in a Champions League game. Talking to former teammate Luca Toni about this, Guardiola said, "It's true that I nailed my nose. Sometimes I am an anxious person. I have bad days. I often make mistakes, and rudeness makes me worry. Sometimes I lose my mind. I don't sleep well, and I don't digest food well. I always have to eat lightly, only having soup in the evening." His annoyance flared up again after the 2-1 home defeat against Manchester United on Sunday. "I knew that this was going to be a difficult season from the beginning, but I didn't think it would be this difficult. I am the boss. I am the manager. I have to find a solution. I am not good enough. Simply that. I am not doing well." Guardiola's passion for each match undoubtedly helps him become one of the best football coaches of all time. It is wonderful to watch an incredible football philosophy when everything is going well. But it is very concerning when things are not going that way. Right now, his suffering is clear, permeating every corner of the club. An old English joke pointed out that Liverpool fans, who waited for a title for 30 years, always lamented the past and declared, "Next year will be their year." That's why Guardiola trying to mock the loyal fans at Anfield with a similar gesture after losing 2-0 becomes even more ironic when the fans chant that Guardiola will be fired. In the morning, he held up 6 fingers to signify the number of Premier League titles he won, reminiscent of Jose Mourinho's 3-finger gesture at the end of a press conference after his Manchester United were beaten 3-0 by Tottenham in August 2018. Mourinho's metaphor even expanded into a new feud between the two coaches. The legendary Special One and Guardiola have been arguing back and forth about City's alleged 115 financial violations affecting the Catalan coach's legacy. He shouldn't waste time responding, especially when there is such a big challenge right now. City's achievement of winning 4 consecutive Premier League titles, the first team to achieve such a record, was built upon Guardiola's intelligence and a group of key players who can be interchangeable. However, according to the high standards of the club, the change in their squad has always been a potential worry. The addition of Savio, a talent owned by City Football Group, in the summer hasn't yielded results, despite some initial promise. While the emotional decision to bring Ilkay Gundogan back to the past in 2023, they have spent over £230 million on Mateo Kovacic, Josko Gvardiol, Jeremy Doku, Mateus Nunes, and Claudio Echeverri, some of whom have had their moments, but none of them have been consistently and undeniably successful. To date, City's only major successful signings in the post-lockdown era have been Erling Haaland and Julian Alvarez, the latter of whom was forced to leave for Atletico Madrid a few months ago. Manuel Akanji and Steven Ortega, with a total value of £15 million, have also proven very useful, considering their previous young prospects like Cole Palmer, Romeo Lavia, Jeremy Frimpong, and Pedro Porro, who are all flourishing away from the Etihad Stadium. You start questioning the work of the soon-to-be departing football director, Siki Begiristain. Guardiola's team-building work is much more valuable to City. However, This is a challenge that Guardiola has never faced before. Except for his first season with City, he has won every year of his managerial career, fighting and winning prestigious titles. Pep is not familiar with top-four battles or rebuilding the club, but instead sprinting and fighting the attacks of winners seeking the crown. And in his 9th season at the Etihad Stadium, sooner or later Guardiola will lose control of the Premier League. That a coach of his caliber would eventually face adversity outside the job is without question. In the same breath, when discussing any future sackings, Guardiola affirms that he will not give up the challenge, that he needs to be the one to get City out of this deadlock and back into the competition. The cleanup job can become terrible, especially if City is found guilty in the lawsuit against the Premier League. The upcoming rebuild will be very difficult for any coach, let alone those who only know limitless success for nearly a decade as a coach. Guardiola's contract length doesn't even matter. Jurgen Klopp proved in January that such well-intentioned managers will ultimately be the masters of their own fate. Klopp managed to get Liverpool back on track before stepping aside, enjoying the fruits of his farewell tour that brought one last Carabao Cup. He should have left with a few more trophies, but Klopp stabilized the foundation for Arne Slot's success. As of this time in the season, City on their current trajectory is not following the continuous path of the Red Devils after a legend leaves, like Manchester United after Sir Alex Ferguson and Arsenal without Arsene Wenger. If Guardiola actually manages to get his team back on track, it would be a very impressive feat worthy of someone who could become the greatest manager of all time. But do you really imagine that happening now? Many people have questioned what City's main goal is for the current season, considering they have not yet stabilized their squad in the Premier League, Champions League, or Cup competitions. Man City remains inconsistent. Perhaps, after several seasons of trophy hauls, Man City should dedicate this season to redefining their future direction, especially with the 115 alleged violations of financial regulations still hanging over their head. Whether or not a future beside Guardiola exists, Man City's management needs to make a decision, and Guardiola should also make his own decision so that it is reasonable for both of them. Jurgen Klopp was not overly invested in the past. He left a solid foundation for Liverpool. And look at the current team. They are having a great journey with the new coach, Arne Slot. And what about you? Especially you Manchester City fans. Should Guardiola stay or leave? Please leave your messages in the comments section for commentator Kenneth. And for now, goodbye and see you in the next programs.